Hey everybody, welcome to the Young Bucks Show. This week we are picking up the shambles of our life as we try to deal with the aftermath of Hurricane Irma and the destruction in Atlanta, Georgia. Along the way though, we are going to talk about how to protect some of your personal information as we address the Equifax security breach. We're also going to talk about a lot of relevant money related issues, including a really nice call out from Ben Nye at the end of the video. Thanks for being here. We'll talk to you soon. Hey everybody, welcome to What the Buck, the segment when we talk about money, but mostly just make stupid decisions on football games. Andrew Hall here, Sam Frost, Matt Krosbach, Ben Nye. Let's get going. First things first, we're recording this on Tuesday. Just had the big #Apple event. We watched a little bit of it in our conference room because we have that kind of technology these days. Ben, I know you were really excited about one of the products in particular, and surprisingly it was not the iPhone. Talk to us a little bit about what you're pumped about.
The big product I'm really pumped about is their biggest product, and they call it the Town Square. This is the new name for the Apple stores. They're going to have trees growing in there called Genius Groves. But seriously, the product I'm most excited about as a consumer is the Apple Watch. I could care less about the Town Square. I think the Apple Watch is a compelling product because it now has cellular and GPS functionality, which means that you don't have to take your phone with you if you want to go exercise and listen to music and track your run, for instance, or any exercise, including swimming, because it is waterproof. The iPhone X, I think, will help average selling prices, not because people are going to be buying a $1,000 phone, but because people will buy the second tier, kind of that medium best value product, and that is now the iPhone 8, which costs $700, rather than last year's version, which is the iPhone 7, which costs $550. Before, if you were to buy the medium range phone, you'd probably buy last year's version, which would be at the iPhone 7 price right now, which is $549. And that's for the lowest end memory version. They obviously go up from there. So I think it'll help on ASPs. I like the Apple Watch. I think the Town Squares are just a charade.
Yeah, and it was kind of interesting because we watched this big event and they go through everything about the iPhone 8 and the iPhone 8 Plus, and then Genius Ben over here, he was like, wait, there's going to be another iPhone. And then they go, and we got one more thing.
Well, the thing that they did differently was weird. Like, the rumors were like it was going to be iPhone 7, 7S, and then iPhone 8. But they changed the names. Like, the initial one was iPhone 8, and then the alleged iPhone 8 was now the iPhone X. It's like they didn't really...
I hope they do a really, really limited release of the iPhone 9 and it becomes a collector's item, because they just totally jumped 9. They're even calling iPhone X iPhone 10, which is just bizarre. Like iPhone 9, whoever was in charge of product development for iPhone 9, that guy's put him on suicide watch. Sam, what are your thoughts on the new products, all that good stuff?
Yeah, so the thing I'm most excited about is the Apple Watch, as Ben mentioned. I think by taking away the leash or whatever so you had to have an iPhone to have an Apple Watch or whatever, that opens the doors to a ton of people. Ben mentioned exercising. Now you have the wireless headphones, so you have an Apple Watch. Now you can listen to music, you can track your run on Nike Run or whatever the app is that you want to use. I think that's a good move. I know the iPhone X has some new gadgets, I guess, but
Gadgets.
Gizmos. I don't know if people really care that much about facial recognition versus just using a fingerprint. But so all that aside, it is a revolutionary product. Not that it's something that I'm dying to have, I guess. But I did read an article maybe last week, talking about the rumors of the new iPhone being priced at $1,000. Basically, people they just polled random people and said, "Hey, are you interested in the new iPhone?" And everyone said, "Yeah." Like, would you consider buying it? And everyone's like, "Yeah, probably." And they said, "All right, well, what if it costs $1,000?" And like all of them said no. Not all of them, it's an exaggeration, but a lot dropped and said, "No, I'm not paying $1,000 for it." Then they start talking about now you're paying monthly installments, so you're paying $40 a month, $50 a month, and then like all of them came back and was like, "Yeah, maybe." And so to Ben's point, $1,000 for a phone seems steep, but I think it could help ASPs because now $50 a month seems way less than paying $1,000 up front. Time value of money is a good investment.
There you go. Next story we got up, Comcast and Disney both had some kind of interesting, I don't know what you would call these, announcements comments about video subscribers, things like that. And both stocks really took a tumble last week. Was that Thursday? I think it was Thursday, maybe. Ben, I know you and Sam and Krebs all did a lot of reading. I did a lot of listening. I can't read. But starting with you, Ben, what were some of your initial responses? Is this fake news, or is this something that people should be really worried about, especially if they're shareholders of these stocks like we are?
Well, I think cord cutting is a fact. It's been happening a long time already, and it hit Comcast this quarter. They're expected to lose 100 to 150,000 video subscribers. So that was a bad piece of news for Comcast because the expectation was that they would actually gain video subscribers. However, if you look at it in a little more detail and say, okay, well, what does this actually mean for Comcast? Well, first of all, this came in the Q&A section of the conference, not the prepared remarks, from executive, but very low on the totem pole. He's not even the leader of the video segment. He's the leader of Xfinity. So bear that in mind. Bear in mind the messenger, which stands actually in contrast to the Disney messaging, which actually brought guidance down. So we're talking about a material change in Disney's prospects. They have big changes coming to their platforms and their offerings next year with the launch of an ESPN subscription service. And it also came from CEO Bob Iger in the prepared remarks at this conference. So bear in mind the difference in messenger and difference in where these comments were made. And I think if you look at that, the implications for Disney are more significant than the implications for Comcast.
I'll let Sam take Disney, but in terms of Comcast, like Ben said, the video sub loss is nothing new. But with Comcast, you have to keep in mind, their bread and butter is still the broadband. Like, people still need the broadband connection, and people aren't going to, today they're not going to go out and cut their broadband connection. I mean, you can get into the argument of 15, 20 years down the road where there's Wi-Fi everywhere and you don't need a broadband connection. But for now, you could view it as a buying opportunity, I guess, for Comcast.
Yeah, so Disney, as Ben mentioned, brought guidance down. They basically said EPS is going to be in line with 2016 or fiscal year 2016 numbers, which isn't great. They did give a lot of insight into their new streaming services that they're planning on offering, or their direct-to-consumer DTC products. They also mentioned at their last earnings call that they're removing all their stuff from Netflix. And so they gave more clarity on that. Basically, the way it's going to work for ESPN is now they're going to offer essentially like an iTunes store for sports events, which I think is a pretty cool idea. ESPN probably captures, I don't know, somewhere between like $5 and $8 a month from people who subscribe to ESPN through a provider, whether it's AT&T or Verizon or who. So now they just have to find a way to capture that $5 to $8 per person each month. And so maybe they charge $1 for a tennis match or a baseball game or something like that, or maybe you can buy a whole season.
Or a Washington game.
Or a Washington game might be on sale for 50 cents.
That'd be free. Can't give those away.
Yeah. But so I think it's a very interesting thing. It seems cheap to sell one game for $1, so maybe they can bump that up. So the big issue, though, although that sounds like a great product and a great move for ESPN, is that's not going to launch till the spring of next year. So now the whole issue around Disney is ESPN is just that's their cash cow. That's who's driving profits, bringing in the money. And now we're left in limbo for another 9 months, essentially. And then we have this product off the ground, and then we have very preliminary research or data to show how this product is working. And so there's no telling. It might take a whole nother year or two after that product has launched to really see how the market is receiving it and if this was a good move or a bad move for Disney. And so now the question has been for the past however many quarters, what's ESPN doing? Are people cutting the cord? How are they going to drive up that money or those profits through ESPN, encourage people to subscribe? And now it's like, all right, you're still not going to know for like another year or so. And so I think that was the big takeaway from Disney, is it's just create a lot of uncertainty.
So yeah, definitely something to keep an eye on. We'll certainly update this. These are two pretty popular topics in general, especially the ESPN thing. I feel like there's always news and opinion on that. Equifax, big data leak this week. We've actually done a couple pieces on it. Krebs and I, we power ranked the 5 most epic data breaches of all time. So definitely something to keep an eye on. But the Equifax thing, Krebs, you're a big credit card guy. all the credit cards, not carrying balances though. Talk to us about your concerns with this Equifax data breach, and what are you doing to create panic?
So according to reports, 143 million people in the United States got their information stolen from Equifax, and I'm pretty confident I am one of them. I mean, I'm a big credit card guy, like you said. I think I have 10 credit cards. It's pretty ugly. I don't know how to deal with it myself, but
yeah, it's kind of one of those things. I mean, supposedly you can go to a website and you can find out if you've been breached. I mean, most likely, if you've had a credit report or anything like that pulled at any point, you were probably impacted.
I mean, like if you apply for a credit card, Equifax is going to be one of the reporting agencies that that looks at it.
Yeah. So if you're watching this and you have a credit card, you're probably impacted. I would caution everyone to be really careful on like what you check if you go to look to see if you were impacted, because they're making an offer where they can basically like educate you and kind of have your back on stuff. But if you do that, it lessens the likelihood that you get any kind of payout in the event that there's an actual settlement. So honestly, if I were you, I would do the following. I think I would just assume that I was impacted and start continuing to monitor your own credit, kind of on your own terms, whatever way you want to do that. And then obviously like the more obvious things, and Scotty and I actually did a video on this as well, but just basic things like make sure you're always staying aware of like where your money's going, double checking things like that.
And on credit cards too, I mean, if you see a weird charge on there, banks are usually really fast to like recoup your any losses if you do it fast enough. So it's really a simple process usually.
Yeah, so just keep an eye out on that. I mean, that's the advice. Like it's almost people don't really budget checkbooks and get out like a little ledger and do all that stuff because we're not losers like that. We're millennials, but it's kind of nice to like check things out, see where you're at, both on your credit cards, debit cards, whatever it may be. Next to last topic, college. Wall Street Journal had an article, kind of a poll, seeing if people felt like their college experience was worth the time, the money, all that good stuff. Ben, I know you got some highlighted notes, and I know Sam's got some hot takes. Take it away.
So last week, the Wall Street Journal came out with an article and a poll saying that people are just generally less trustful of college than they used to be. They think that it is not worth the cost in many instances. So some data behind that, 49% now believe that earning a 4-year degree will lead to a good job and higher lifetime earnings, which sounds good. But that compares with 47% who don't. So obviously a 2-point margin, which has narrowed from 13 points just 4 years ago. Men and young people have been major drivers of this shift. Men, by a 12-point margin, saw college as worth the cost 4 years ago. Now they say it's not worth it by a 10-point margin. So that's a 22-point swing. And Americans 18 to 34 years old, obviously the people who are in college or just graduated from college, skeptics outnumber believers 57 to 39, almost a mirror image from 4 years earlier. So what happens is that the colleges are now playing defense, saying that, wait, college is worth the cost. Florida Provost Joseph Glover said that, I think it's happening because there's a disconnect between the group of Americans who go to university and acquire an appreciation of lifelong learning and another group of people who never get access and never really understand the benefits a university brings to society at large. I take issue with this. I think that you can still be a lifelong learner without going to college. In fact, I think that you can actually learn more because you're actually in the real world, learning real skills, rather than studying out of a book and sitting in a library.
Yeah, so I do agree that there needs to be some type of reform. I think I've said on our podcast probably 8 times that when I went back to grad school, it meant so much more to me than undergrad. And that was because I went to undergrad and I thought making A's was all that mattered. So I could just memorize stuff, regurgitate it. I got an A, I'm smart, I move on. But then you go out and you get a job and you're like, oh, I don't remember everything because I didn't learn it, I just memorized it. And so when you go back to school, it means so much more to you. And so the question is, how do you make an 18-year-old kid care about school that way and go into school and say, I don't care if I make an A. All I care is that I learn the material so I can turn around and on an interview sit down and walk somebody through a discounted cash flow analysis and impress somebody and get a job in an investment bank. How do you make them care about that? The unemployment rate for people with a college degree is something around 2%, 2.5%. And then for people with just a high school degree, it's like 5%, or around those numbers. And the final two things I'll say is, one, we need to find a way to influence kids, 18-year-old kids going to college, to say, I want to learn. This is meaningful. I don't care about just getting A's. But the other thing that I'll say is, for me, I thought college was a lot about learning how to learn. When you have a teacher presenting you research and then gives you a test, for you to go do your own research and read and synthesize and put the information together to be able to understand it, which I got more of in grad school, which is probably why I feel that way.
So, staying on the topic of college, and we're going to go really quick because I know we're running long on this entire episode. So, college football picks, got to get them in. That's the important stuff. Current standings, Ben off to another hot start, second year in a row at 7-2. I am 6-3. Sam and Krebs both 5-4. Everybody over 500. Game number one, Ben, Washington minus 33.5 points against Fresno State. What you got?
Washington is the last game before the real games start against Colorado next week. School still hasn't started. This is going to be the first game before students really get there. So the crowd is not going to be as intense as it usually is. It's the loudest stadium in the United States.
As of 1992.
And they're going to be resting the players ahead of that Colorado game. So I am taking Fresno State and the points.
Yeah, I got Fresno.
I got Washington.
Fresno.
All right. Bama minus 28.5 against Colorado State. Sam, talk to us.
In the interest of time, I'm going with Bama.
I'm also going with Bama.
Colorado State.
Bama.
All right. Wisconsin minus 17.5 against BYU. This is going to be an electric contest, I'm sure. Krebs, what you got?
I think Wisconsin's going to come out strong after kind of not playing that well against Florida Atlantic. I'm taking Wisconsin there at 17.5.
Ben?
BYU.
I got Wisconsin.
I got Wisconsin.
All right. Last game we got is the bonus game. Ben picked it this week. We've got Clemson minus 3 against Louisville. Ben, you got any thoughts?
Not really. I think that Clemson has a lot of people coming back, especially on the defensive side. Yes, they don't have Deshaun Watson this year, and yes, Lamar Jackson is still there for Louisville. But I think that defense ultimately trumps, and I think they can cover the 3.
Krebs?
This one was hard for me, but I took Clemson.
I got Clemson as well. Sam?
No alpha. Clemson.
All right. There we go. Y'all have a great week. Keep watching. Lots of good stuff coming your way. Hello, everyone. Welcome. As you can see right here on the street, right here, Hurricane Irma. It's Wednesday, Tuesday, recording right here. School's closed in Metro Atlanta for the second day, and as you can see, joined by Scotty Valiani, who's right here having the time of his life.
Right on your screens, folks.
Right here. Welcome, Andrew Hall here, Scotty Valiani. We'll get going now, but talking about a couple big topics this week on the Young Bucks Show. Number one is cybersecurity, security hacks, all that good stuff related to Equifax and the big league there. Also talking quite a bit for the second or third week in a row about tropical storms, be it flooding, hurricanes, whatever it may be. All jokes aside, we are here in Atlanta, right in the thick of things. I don't know if you guys have been following this, but Atlanta, hurricane ground zero, a lot of people are saying.
Can
really,
you see it? Can
Yeah.
you see what's happening behind us?
I'll tell you what you don't see out there, folks, is people going to school, because for the second straight day, school is closed. We'll try to get some B-roll footage of the ground, but it is wet. It has rained here.
Very wet.
So
even.
talking a little bit about cybersecurity, talking a little bit about hurricanes, and what we wanted to do today, Scotty, is just kind of spend a few minutes talking about how you can protect yourself. And I think there are actually some similarities between storms and cybersecurity. So
Very much
I
so.
got 4 things out there for people at home that may be watching this, freaking out and saying, how on earth do I protect my data? So number 1, starting off really simple. If you don't want to get impacted by a hurricane, I would recommend that you don't live where there's going to be hurricanes. Now, that's really unfortunate because, as I said, we live in Atlanta. You wouldn't expect there to be inclement weather of a hurricane variety. But as you can see, I mean, it is really coming down out here. It is rough. But the equivalent in cybersecurity is to start not using bad passwords.
That's genius.
That's kind of how you get going. And, Scotty, we've looked at these lists before, but the most common passwords are absolutely ridiculous. A lot of people put out lists of the 10 most common passwords.
What's the most common one?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Gotta add an 8 at the end there, folks.
So that's the crazy thing, though, is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 is number 1. You also have like numbers 1 through 9, numbers 1 through 9 plus a 0. All of these in the top 10.
Really?
98765432110, also a top 10 password.
Wow.
QWERTY is a top 10 password, and
there.
my personal favorite, password. So only real variety we get in that top 10 list is 123123, getting real creative.
Wow.
So, if you don't want your house to get torn up by a hurricane, best place to start is to not live near where you might expect a hurricane. If you don't want your accounts getting hacked directly through password infiltration, don't have a password people are going to guess.
Genius.
Secondly, get creative, and this is kind of the answer, I guess, to number 1. Get creative with passwords, and even get some help with passwords. We're talking about stuff like changing your passwords regularly. There's a number of programs we can use, and Scotty, I think you're the expert on cybersecurity in the office. We use a thing called LastPass. This is not an advertisement for it, but it does a couple things. It makes your life easier because you don't have to remember your passwords, but it also generates secure passwords for you.
That's right. Passwords, the kind of passwords that you've got to write them down and carry them around with you if you want to be able to use them again. So I think that's super important. You gotta be advanced here. You gotta be ready to protect. And the other big thing is not having the same password on everything that you do. That's a total high school move, guys. Don't do it. You gotta have them Facebook, MySpace, Twitter. All gotta be different.
Yeah, switch it up a little bit. We should probably do that ourselves so that nobody hacks the prestigious Tusk Media social media accounts.
That'd be bad.
Yeah, really bad. Could get wild. Ted Cruz knows what we're talking about. Next thing up, we have sometimes it's actually the best way to avoid getting hacked is to actually avoid technology altogether. And this is really important specifically in our field where we're talking about money movements, whether it's a wire or somebody's requesting a check. We're investment advisors, so we work with clients. We manage investment portfolios, but part of that is ultimately those investment portfolios are comprised of client money. And sometimes those clients want to pull that money out. Maybe they're buying a house. Maybe they just want to send a gift to a child or grandchild, whatever it may be. A really great way to start is to know the people you're interacting with, whether it's going into a bank in person or instead of just emailing your financial advisor, actually getting on the phone, calling them up and saying, hey, Scotty, he's not actually an advisor, but if he were, hey, Scotty, can you wire some money? I want to talk you through it. And then just get them to follow up with you so that they kind of know what's going on. That's a great way, get some humans involved.
Absolutely.
And I think that's really important sometimes, especially millennials, young people. We get this kind of knock on us for wanting to do everything via text or via email or
ATM.
via app. Yeah.
Who wants to go into the bank anymore? Everyone uses the ATM, but there are a lot of really cool people that work in those banks.
Apparently.
Meet them.
Yeah.
Meet them. It makes it 10 times easier when you need to withdraw money or something, when they know your name. It's great.
So just show up, make a call. You'll impress some older people. I guarantee it. Lastly, follow up on whatever you're doing online, whether you're paying a bill, supposed to receive money, something like that. Look at the transactions and look at this repeatedly. And the other great thing is if you're logging into your bank account using that secure password, that password that you change from time to time, and you're looking at transactions, you're going to become more aware of what you're doing financially, where you're spending money, where it's going. Hey, did that gym membership I canceled, did it actually cancel? I actually just did this myself. That gym membership I canceled, did they stop billing me? Hey, I just canceled TV. Did they actually stop doing that? Am I getting overcharged for TV? What's going on there? Am I getting charged for the Mayweather-McGregor fight even though it didn't stream on pay-per-view? You can find out all those important issues that we've been talking about on this show for the last couple months by logging in and actually being aware of where your money's going.
Absolutely. You should always be aware before your company calls you and says, hey, did you, is this you? Were you, spending money here or here? You should know that. You should be the one making that first call to your credit card company.
Yeah, and you're going to get a call at some point that says, hey, is this a fraudulent charge? Do us a favor and don't be the guy that has to say, well, let me look. I'm not sure. You should be aware of where you're spending money because they're usually calling about a transaction that happened in the last 24 hours. If you can't remember where you've been in the last 24 hours, you need to question your life decisions, people.
That's right. Get help, please.
Get help now.
Soon.
So stay safe out there. Try to stay dry. If you're in Atlanta, good luck. I mean, there's no solutions here. I don't see any light at the end of the tunnel. I think it's only going to be downhill from now. Probably the last show ever for Young Bucks because the weather is so unbelievably bad. But we appreciate your thoughts and prayers, and everybody be safe out there. Scotty, thanks, man.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Getting Tanked. This is the segment where we stand in front of a fish tank and we talk about things. Andrew Hall here, joining me, Matt Krebsbach. We talked a little bit about the Equifax data breach in the Bucks segment, and today we're going to talk a little bit more about that. We're going to go all BuzzFeed on this and talk about the 5 most epic data breaches of all time. So we're going to power rank these bad boys. Krebs, you ready to go?
Yep. Let's do it.
Let's get to it. So coming up at number 5, we planned this out kind of in our pre-production meeting. Maybe we could put up a poll or something like that on Twitter. But number 5, we have the Home Depot credit card breach of 2014. So 56 million people.
I believe this is the oldest one we had on the list, so
Yeah.
it's a little dated at this point. But still, 56 million accounts there. That's brutal.
That's no joke. That's no joke. And we think of like most people going to Home Depot. I just know when I'm there, it's like one of the more frantic shopping trips of my life because I'm just trying to get in and out. And of all the places to be like, dang it, that's where they got my card info, Home Depot.
That one's depressing too, because like everyone there is like hardworking,
Yeah. That's
doing work, but then they
blue
just
collar crime at its truest,
Yeah,
right
exactly.
there. So number 5, Home Depot. Number 4 is actually the one we just talked about in What the Buck. So Equifax, 143 million consumers impacted. Still a little bit early, I guess, in some regards to know what really happened there and what the real fallout will be. I think in the meantime, we'll kind of stick to our advice of like not taking their settlement where they just offer to like look out for you.
You know, I didn't check and see if I got hacked, but I'm sure I did because, you know, I'm a big credit card guy. I think I
Big
have like
credit card
9
guy.
credit cards. So
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I got hacked.
9 credit cards, no balance though, no carry balance.
definitely.
So
Don't carry balances.
so big credit card guy. Number 3, I think our favorite on the list, the Ashley Madison account scandal.
Yep. This one was a couple years ago too.
Yeah. This was a big one for those who don't know. Ashley Madison, I think, it's the website where you register and sign up to have an affair. And I think the funny part is not so much how many people were, I guess, paying money for a website like this, but how many of them were men thinking they were talking to women and they were actually talking to like either robots or other men.
33 million accounts is insane to me for that.
That's pretty
I'm
crazy.
sure like everyone that got hacked there would have rather had their credit card gotten stolen than be found out, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think
I guess deservedly so they got found out. But.
Yeah, probably wanted to blame it all on Home Depot, but a different kind of home issue there, I guess. Number 2, and this was hotly debated by us, the DNC breach. So the email breach of last year. Many people are saying that was a big deal. Russian involvement might or might not have happened, but certainly one of the most talked about data breaches. Maybe not traditional in the sense of credit card information, social security information, but a lack of security nonetheless.
And the potential like impact that had on just like, you know, the severity of it's way greater.
Yeah.
That was my thinking of putting that so high.
Yeah, a lot of people would say that because of that attack, we have the president we have. So whether you buy into that or not, who knows? But nonetheless, some security issues. And number 1 we had, I think this is probably, at least in our world from an investing perspective, the most talked about. It was the Yahoo account scandal. So over 1 billion accounts were hacked, which is just unreal that there were 1 billion Yahoo accounts to begin with.
And these hacks were like really old. I think I read that those hacks occurred in like 2014, and then there's another 500 million in 2013. So like if you combine that, there's 1.5 potentially, if I'm understanding that right, hacks.
Yeah.
So pretty much everyone got hacked.
Everybody got hacked, and then
Everyone,
Yahoo was, in the midst of getting purchased, and it impacted purchase price of that acquisition, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, big news in the investing world. So, don't use Yahoo. I don't think anybody really does. That's the crazy thing.
Except
to
for
me.
fantasy football.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the thing. It was so many fantasy football rosters that got hacked. That's it. So the Power 5 right here, Home Depot's scandal in 2014 was number 5. Equifax this year, number 4. Could move up. Who knows? Ashley Madison, number 3 for comedic value. The DNC breach, number 2. And number 1, the Yahoo account hack. So there you have it. The 5 most epic data breaches of all time. Y'all have a great day.
This is the final segment of the day, and it is the call out. I'm Ben Nye. We all know about the recent rise in North Korean belligerence. We all know about the news headlines, which offer sometimes sensational accounts of the damage the war games are wreaking on the market. Just the last couple of weeks, Bloomberg has said the following headlines. First one, traders hunkered down as stock futures slip on Korean missile. Second one is what war between North Korea and the United States might look like. Former could well be a case of Bloomberg once again assuming cause and effect where there is not necessarily such a relationship. Better headline could well be stock futures slip and North Korea launches a missile. But that wouldn't generate as many clicks or as much advertising revenue. Latter headline is a good old-fashioned clickbait. War between North Korea and the United States, assuming those are the only parties involved, would actually be extremely quick. Kim would be gone overnight. And yet in Bloomberg's latest Business Week magazine, the story led off with a much less bellicose article about the Korean nuclear arsenal. Quoting from the top, North Korea looks pretty scary at the moment, firing off missile after missile, threatening to target Guam, and on September 3rd, testing what the regime claims was its first hydrogen bomb. And the country's dictator, Kim Jong-un, so ruthless he may have had members of his own family murdered, might be just crazy enough to push the button to initiate a catastrophic war, or maybe not. Look deeper and you'll find a North Korea that isn't as much of an immediate danger to the United States as the headlines and rhetoric suggest. Goes on to talk about that, quote, Kim's aim is not to destroy Los Angeles, but to save his own skin, and that Kim can't count on, quote, his main source of support, China, to save the day. He references, quote, an August editorial in the Global Times, the communist newspaper, that Beijing should stay neutral if Pyongyang were to initiate a conflict with the United States. That's not necessarily an official declaration of policy from the Chinese, but it could indicate limits to China's appetite to defend its long-time ally. So Bloomberg defines its view of the North Korean misperception. There are certainly problems with it, not least that if Kim's desire was actually to save his own skin, he would actually talk to people including South Korea and the United States. The author also makes an error by saying that China isn't so friendly to North Korea. You can't tell me that China hasn't played a significant role in enabling North Korean nuclear power. This is a country whose per capita national income is $1,300 and, absent its nuclear weapons, has an outdated and ill-equipped military. As a result, the author's prescription for a solution is all wrong. He says that Western powers should, quote, negotiate with North Korea. He says it is irresponsible to say that the U.S. would meet a nuclear attack with fire and fury. He claims this makes Kim all the more paranoid and the desire for nuclear capabilities all the more important. I don't know about you, but if we were attacked by a nuclear warhead, fire and fury sure seems appropriate to me. The problem here is that news outlets like Bloomberg are set to gain clicks and not actually deliver compelling analysis. What we have is two leaders employing some version of Richard Nixon's madman theory. This is where you convince your enemies you are crazy. People get scared when they're dealing with a crazy person, just like we're scared of dealing with Kim. This is perhaps North Korea's greatest insight. As Machiavelli says, it is sometimes a very wise thing to simulate madness. So the biggest problem Trump has is not the fact he responds to the threat with fire and fury. It's the fact that he is being out-madmaned by a madman.
Tusk Media is a subsidiary of Narwhal Capital Management. Ratings and reviews of Tusk Media content are not to be construed as endorsements of opinions, analysis, or services offered by Tusk or its parent company. The opinions and predictions shared here are our professional beliefs at the time of publication. We are not under duress from any of the corporate entities mentioned. This is not a solicitation to take any particular action. Although we are investment advisors, this information should not be considered investment, legal, or tax advice. We strive to be as impartial, insightful, and accurate as possible. We base our opinions, analysis, and calculations on information we believe to be reliable, but we cannot guarantee its accuracy. We can, however, guarantee that our opinions will sometimes be flat out wrong due to a variety of factors. Employees and clients of Narwhal Capital Management may or may not hold positions in the securities detailed and may or may not hold these positions in the future. A full list of all securities purchased, sold, or held during the 12 months preceding the date of this publication can be provided upon request. Unless otherwise noted, all data accessed via MarketWatch or the Bloomberg terminal. Past performance does not guarantee future results. A copy of Narwhal's Form ADV is available at the SEC's website, www.advisorinfo.sec.gov, or from Narwhal upon written request.